let me give you another, if not criticism, observation. Fram Spielman, City Hall reporter for the Sun-Times, wrote, during his tenure as 23rd Ward Alderman, which you were before you were clerk, Laski seemed to crave media attention and couldn't get enough limelight. Is that true?
You know what, I guess this is an ego business. I mean, I never thought of it like that, but yeah, I've been criticized a lot for that. But I mean, I just tried to, I was always considered a fighter, and if Daley was wrong, I wouldn't be afraid to say he was wrong. And I guess people criticized me because I tried to take on Daley more often, and I was warned more often than not to be careful about, you know, bucking the system.
So could this book be an extension of that search for the limelight?
No, you know what, and people ask me about my motivation. My motivation is to write, and Carol, I tell people this all the time, it's not, I write, what, 3 chapters on Daley? I talk about my own problems. I talk about how I took money. I talk about my father. I talk about my problems with drinking. I talk about the struggles I had when I had to leave my wife and my children. I just don't talk about politicians. I talk about prison conditions. I put myself in a bad light, and I'm very open and honest to the people who will read this book about Jim Laski, the person. And there's a human side to all this, and it's about the culture of Chicago politics and how I changed and how I got straight out of law school, and I was an idealistic sort of guy, and I got involved in the politics, and I changed. And a lot of it, you know, some for the good and some for the bad.
When you went into politics, as we said before, you went into the 23rd Ward. You worked for the alderman and committeeman at the time, Bill Lipinski, who goes on to be a congressman. His son, Dan, is now a congressman. You say some pretty damning things. You say that Lipinski, among other things, knowingly put ghosts on the public payroll, right?
I put people on the voucher per his direction, and these people did not work for me. And by today's standards, those people would be considered ghosts because they didn't work on my aldermanic vouchers. They did whatever they did for Bill Lipinski.
Which was in contravention of what you're supposed to do on the taxpayer's dime?
Right. There was a guy who did construction work who was on my aldermanic voucher.
Construction work for?
Building offices at the ward office, or doing work at his house.
We should say that we attempted to reach Congressman Dan Lipinski and through him his father, and we haven't heard back. You say some of my actions as Lipinski's chief of staff may have been illegal, but I continue to regard them as normal. Like what? Like what was cleaning his gutters is one of the things, right?
Oh, I mean, working on, you know, on city time or government time, doing personal errands and work. You know, we were out getting signatures, petitions on city time and federal government time, and you know, and there were dead people voting at the polling places, and there were absentee ballots that were changed.
And do you really mean that you cleaned his son Dan's bedroom on the taxpayers' time?
We moved furniture and moved out his furniture out of the house, out of the bedroom.
Truth be told, given all the illegal things you've said you've done, were you surprised that the thing that grabbed you was hired truck as opposed to all the other things that might have?
Carol, I mean, again, it was the culture of the business, and you know what, and I feel like I had a cat with 9 lives. I got away from a lot of different things, and hired trucks was my downfall, and I made the mistake of taking money from former friends.
And your friends betrayed you. Friends wired up on you, right? With
you know, guys I knew for 20-some years, and you know how I tell people now. I said, you know what, my heart was ripped out when he did that to me, but he could have wore, if I didn't take the money from him, he could have wore 20 wires and it wouldn't have mattered.
Did the feds ask you to wire up? Have you ever worn a wire as a result?
No. But the feds asked me, you know, things about politicians from A to Z when they had me, you know, interrogating me for 3-4 weeks.
And so you cooperated with them. You told them what you knew.
Oh, I didn't know much, so you know, they asked me.
It seems like you knew 419 pages, well, so I mean, so you must know something.
The feds, when they ask you questions, they usually know the answers when they're asking the questions. So what
happens to you now? I mean, you spent 11 months in prison, 6 months in a halfway house, right? That's a pretty humiliating, pretty harrowing way to spend your life.
Nobody is prepared for federal prison. I will tell you, it's not a country club, it's not a resort, and it's very dehumanizing, and it's very, very degrading.
Are you dry now? Are you drinking?
No, I'm not drinking. I feel good.
And your wife, you worried that your wife would leave you?
Well, I was worried. I mean, you know, we have 3 children at home, and she's been terrific. My wife stuck by me through all this, and she's a school teacher. And I choke up when I talk about my wife and my kids because I missed them dearly when I was gone, and they all stuck by me. I mean, that's my salvation right now.
And so you don't smoke, you don't drink. You don't work right now, right?
Well, I do some part-time consulting. I mean, matter of fact, it's ironic. I'm doing some corporate ethics for a company and talking about the do's and don'ts about of politics and corporations and doing the right thing.
Do you believe that there is only one way to do business in the city of Chicago, that you've got to know somebody who helps you get somewhere to pick up a contract?
Carol, I think Chicago politics is a blood sport. I think it's down and dirty. I think it's been like that for years. It was that way before I got into politics. It'll be that way after I get out of politics. And I think people in Chicago politics have selective amnesia. I think there's a number of things that make Chicago politics unique to the rest of this country.
And do you believe that it has turned a corner, that these scandals have in fact caused people to see the light, to see what happened to you, that some of this is cleaned up?
You know what? I think as long as politics exists in Chicago, there's always going to be stuff going on. And I think there'll still be stuff going on with absentee ballots and dead people voting and all that stuff that's unique to Chicago. I don't know if it's unique to Chicago, but you know, stuff like that will continue to go on.
So when you go to these seminars, what do you tell people to do to preserve themselves?
I tell people that your decisions could have negative consequences, and the consequences not only can affect you, but they can affect your family, your wife, your children, your mom, your dad. I mean, think about other things. When you make decisions just besides yourself, there's other people that will be affected, and negative decisions have negative consequences. And I learned that the hard way.
And so where does Jim Laski's transformed life take him now?
I don't know. You know, it's going to be interesting now. I'm going to talk a little bit about the book. I hope to go back to West Virginia to talk to the University of West Virginia students about the prison out there. I'd like to talk to other universities about politics, prisons, ethics, and just talk about Chicago politics and how it changes people.
Well, Jim Laski, thank you for being with us. It is a fascinating read. Your book is now available on Amazon, right?
Amazon.com.
And it's My Fall from Grace.
Yes.
Thank you very much for joining us on Chicago Tonight. Chicago Tonight continues in a moment, so please stay with us.